Hi, Analisa Six here to bring you the May 2023 horoscope for the sun and rising sign of Aries. Hi, Aries. How are you? Aries have been going through a lot this month. I have a lot of Aries in my life, and I've talked to a lot of them on a regular basis. My husband is an Aries, and I just feel like April was a rough month, and I feel like May is going to start out pretty rough too for most of us. But let's get into it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about your chart, your horoscope chart for the month of May. So May is interesting. We've got a lot of energy that is tense and hard, but we also have a lot of energy that's really positive for kind of making some breakthroughs when it comes to areas that we felt stifled with. We start out May with Mercury still in retrograde in Taurus, and the area of the chart that this is impacting for you, Aries, has to do with your area of financial security and stability. And so if you've been feeling like your finances aren't quite doing what you want them to, or there's been some, money that you've had to spend that you weren't really wanting to spend, or if just getting finances in order has been a theme, that has definitely been highlighted so far this May. It's the 4th of May right now, the day that I'm talking. So I feel like we're already in it a little bit. But, the first day of May, we started out with this Mercury Sun conjunction in Taurus. But because Mercury's retrograde, this type of energy that might kind of bring more insights or awareness in certain areas, while it's doing that, it might not be in the most positive way since Mercury is retrograde still. And Mercury is going to be retrograde until the 15th. So I believe it's actually the evening of the 14th on Sunday. So, and then we have the shadow period for Mercury. So our finances, Mercury's in Taurus the entire month of May. And so that financial house is highlighted for the sign of Aries for the entire month of May. And so we start out with the Mercury retrograde, making it kind of tense, and maybe there's some things that have to get figured out. But hopefully once Mercury stations direct on the 14th, and then we get through that shadow period, the last couple weeks of May, you should hopefully feel like your finances are moving in a smoother direction when it comes to prioritizing that stuff. A few other things that we have going on at the start of May is that today on the 4th of May, we actually have a Venus square to Neptune. And so Venus has been making its way through Gemini, and Venus has a lot to do with our relationships, like partnership, best friends, those types of relationships, romantic relationships. And Juno actually also has entered Gemini. So Juno is the asteroid that has to do with marriage. And the area of the chart that this is hitting for the Aries individual for the horoscope is the area that has to do with communication. And so communication in our romantic partnerships or business partnerships or even best friends is something that has been getting worked through since April, but we're actually building upon that in May. And also because we have that Mercury retrograde around finances, there might be some need to discuss money with a partner or, just resources, financial resources within partnership. But there also, it can also just be partnership dynamics or communication dynamics that are also highlighted because, Juno, the asteroid of marriage, has more to do with the things that we really need in our relationships, our partnerships. And then Venus kind of has more of the romantic influence to it, but that also influences our partnerships quite a bit. And so that square that's happening to Neptune, the area of the chart that's hitting for the Aries, has to do with the subconscious. And so it's possible that there are things from the past that are getting triggered that bring awareness into the present and how our perspectives are and our mental process and how we're communicating all of that stuff. So that's a theme at the start of May for Aries. At the beginning of May, we also have Jupiter making its last few ways through your sign. So, Jupiter is actually going to be entering Taurus this month. I guess that before we get into that, we should talk about some stuff that's happening before that. Sorry, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Before we get there, Venus will actually be making its way out of Gemini and entering Cancer, and that's going to be happening around the 8th of May. And when Venus enters Cancer, that's actually going to bring awareness into your home life your home life in terms of the home that you live in. And then also this area rules the family. And so your family is also getting focused on, and that can be chosen family. It can be the family that we currently reside with. So if you have roommates or a romantic partner that you live with, that relationship is highlighted, but also our relationship with our parents can be highlighted as well. And so Venus brings healing and resolution and also attention to that area. And so if you're feeling more introverted, you're feeling more like you want to spend time at home, you're feeling more romantic in homemaking, that's also something that could be coming up for you as well. We also still have Mars passing through the area of the chart, and Mars brings conflict and tension. So if you've been feeling tension or conflict within the home environment, that can also be because Mars has been there. But Mars can also bring up difficult conversations or experiences with the family. There can also be reactionary stuff. There can also be certain things that happen within the home structure that can be a little bit discombobulating, relationships with the mother can be a little bit strained when we have Mars passing through here. And so Mars has been passing through there since April, but Venus is coming in hopefully to bring some resolution or some peace to any kind of conflict that you may have been having or stirring up. And it also makes home more restorative. Like Venus coming here makes it so that being at home might actually feel more rejuvenating, more restorative. You might want to bond or connect more with the person that you share your space with, whether that's family members, romantic partners, roommates, things like that. Venus passing through this area also makes us more prone to wanting to do beautification to our home. So if you've been, kind of annoyed with the space, or you want to paint something or elevate a space in the home in some way to make it more beautiful, that's also supported by Venus passing through this area. So that's happening for the rest of May. So then if we go back to Jupiter, Jupiter is going to be passing through the last bit of Aries, and so where this hits is that area of identity and self, the relationship to self. And so, Aries has been challenged a lot in how to meet the self in a way that is congruent with how you want to grow and where you want to be in your life. There can also be an inflation of self or an inflation of ego here. So there's also a little bit of check yourself in your ego when Jupiter's passing through here, but it's also a great time to focus on building more self-worth, self-acceptance, self-love, that kind of stuff. And then Jupiter is going to be moving into Taurus around the 17th of May. And so Jupiter in Taurus is going to be passing through that financial area. And again, Jupiter is that planet that brings abundance and blessings. But when Jupiter's passing through the area of money, it can also have us being more impulsive or irresponsible with money in the sense that we want to spend more of it. So even though we could be acquiring more of it, which is great, we could also be equally spending just as much of it as we're acquiring. So getting some grounded energy on your finances and trying to create a more solid plan around finances is definitely supported. And hopefully, since Mercury will be direct once Jupiter enters Taurus, Mercury is no longer retrograde in this area anymore either. So hopefully Mercury is coming through in this direct motion with Jupiter coming through to be like, okay, let's get some financial strategies in place in a way that's positive for us. And again, this is a great time to be working on self-worth, because the second house, when there's energy passing through here, also has to do with self-worth. And, are we making as much as we're worth? Do we value ourselves? What is our relationship to stability and security, and how do we create that for ourselves? And so those are also positive things happening in terms of what you're kind of working through for the month of May. The next big energy that we have to talk about is Mars. It has been in Cancer since April, and Mars is going to be passing through the rest of Cancer for the first 3 weeks of May. And so again, I already talked about where that's hitting in the chart in terms of home and family life, but then Mars is going to be moving on the 21st into the sign of Leo, where it's going to be until July. So we're going to have Mars in Leo for the rest of May, starting on that date. And that area for the Aries chart has to do with the area that rules our creative expression, our self-expression, our connection to fun and joy and passion and romance. And so hopefully Mars in Leo, Leo also trines Aries. So Leo and Aries get along very well with each other. Mars is the ruler of Aries. And so this should be amplifying your passion, your romantic energy, your desire to be creative, your desire to have fun and joy and self-expression. But it also can shine a light on areas that we feel insecure in doing that. And so part of the journey with Mars and Leo might be also healing any issues around self-expression or insecurities around, validation in the world, things like that. One of the energies that is very Mars and Leo to me is the Five of Wands, which the Five of Wands in the tarot is the card that represents creative competition. And out of all the fives, I would say, I'm going to try to find an image of the Five of Wands for you in the Rider-Waite Smith deck, because this image I feel like definitely encapsulates that energy to me. But I think out of all the fives, the Five of Wands is the one that feels the least threatening to me, in the sense that sometimes a little creative competition can be in good fun, right? Sometimes we have people in our lives that inspire us in a way where it can be fun to be on a path with a creative partner where you're always challenging each other to be better, right? Where creative competition tends to have its downfall is when we become jealous, envious, or spiteful towards people that we're inspired by. And so that's where it starts to turn into kind of this other type of energy that's actually really destructive and negative and poisonous to our well-being and to others. And so Mars in the fifth house, it could go either way. We could feel this amplification of inspiration where we push ourselves to grow within our craft and be better, or it could go into a way where we feel jealous and competitive, and we end up hurting ourselves and others through that need to try to be better than other people in a destructive way. And so you might be working through both. Some people work through both, where we get triggered and we're like, oh my God, that person's doing that, I want to do that. And we feel that tinge of envy, and then we go, oh, well, how can I be better? And then instead of us getting angry or upset about it, we just get inspired, and it makes us grow and evolve and, challenge ourselves. And I think that you have to gauge within yourself whether or not this is happening in a positive or a constructive way, because I think that it, like I said, it can go both ways. It can be really fun to be in creative projects with people where you challenge each other to grow and you inspire each other. But if it's happening with jealousy, and you also, if you're the kind of person where you want other people to fail and you want to succeed and you only want to be the best, or you don't feel like there's room for everybody, this turns your heart black, or dark really quick, right? So it's not positive if that's where it's coming from. But I think that's kind of the complexity of this kind of Mars and Leo type energy is, is this constructive to my well-being and the well-being of others? Can I have fun? Can I feel challenged in a way that inspires me to be better without it turning into me having issues with other people? And not everybody can do that. I've met a lot of people where their jealousy or envy prohibits them from having constructive relationships to the point where it affects their business, it affects their relationships, it affects their ability to move forward in life, because they're unable to let go and move past their own issues in that way. And I've actually left a lot of creative projects because of that type of energy, where I'm just like, this isn't fun. It's not fun when you are in a creative relationship or dynamic with people that's like that and gross in that way, right? So I think that for the Aries person, you might be working through some of that, and I think it just depends on you. Like, you might have fun feeling that challenge and being like, I'm going to do better. And it might not be coming from that place, but if you do have those tendencies to feel jealous and spiteful and angry and frustrated and mad at other people's success, then this is going to be a time where you really need to work on humbling yourself and figuring out how you can be happy for other people while you also work towards your own accomplishments and success, right? Because that stuff ends up hurting relationships. And one of the other things too, I think that's important for a lot of Aries people is to reflect on what you yourself put out before you judge how other people are putting their stuff out. I don't know if I said that right. I think Aries has a tendency to kind of jump to conclusions or be impulsive about things without, like, sometimes the self-awareness around how that person also is doing their own version of that, right? And so when we build self-awareness around our own ways that we project outwards about what we do, we can be less judgmental or build more empathy towards why other people might be expressing themselves in certain ways. But what happens if we're overly judgmental about other people's self-expression, then we become more insecure about our own expression of self, because that inner critic is so loud that it prevents us from freedom to express and explore, right? And Leo energy, is there to express and explore freely. It wants to do it in a way that's very empowered and confident, not this like judgmental, critical place that sometimes can happen. That we can all do, right, to ourselves. So those are things that, you might be working through the Mars and Leo energy that's happening through the rest of June. So just things to think about. Mars too is also going to be making a trine to Jupiter around the 27th. And so, I'm sorry, not a trine, a square to Jupiter towards the end of the month. And so those are, again, like there's creative tension there, that Jupiter Mars square is definitely going to bring up some of that stuff. And there might be some of those triggers. And so it's important to really work through and reflect on how that stuff is making you feel. And, there might be some need to eat some humble pie in some of those situations. We have a lot of aspects hitting this month that I talked about in the astrology forecast. And, when I do these horoscopes, they're already so long that it's hard for me to feel motivated or inspired to sit and break down each little aspect for each sign. And so what I highly recommend you do is go back and watch the May 2023 astrology forecast on each aspect, because you're going to get a lot from that. And I'm just going to include like some of those aspects that I already discussed. And then we're going to talk about the eclipse that's happening tomorrow. And then we're going to talk about the new moon. So I'm trying to think if there's any other aspects that I want to talk about for you, Aries, in May. There's so many going on. We have a lot. I guess one of the things that I'll talk about is that we do have a lot of energy that is happening in the water element. And so we've got Pisces and Cancer predominantly both kind of firing off. And then tomorrow when we have this eclipse in Scorpio Taurus axis. So it's a full moon lunar eclipse that's happening on May 5th, and it's happening at 14 degrees of Scorpio. And so during this eclipse, we're going to have the Scorpio energy highlighted. That is the moon. And then we're going to have Neptune and Saturn both in Pisces. And we're also having Venus in I guess Venus is still in Gemini, but Mars is in Cancer. So we're going to have the Mars energy in Cancer. And so there's a lot of water energy in this lunar eclipse. And water energy rules the emotional realm. It rules the past. It rules ancestral connections. It rules the void, essentially, like kind of where this imaginal realm is, where imaginations, dreams are born, the subconscious, those types of things. And so having so much energy in water during this eclipse tomorrow is going to kind of shine a big light on our subconscious and our feelings. And those of us in recovery, alcohol is a water dominated substance. And those of us that, are in recovery from alcohol, we might really feel, that heaviness that, we tend to look to escape, in alcohol or lean more into. I think it depends on how you're wired. I think some people escape the heaviness through alcohol by trying to build more carefree lightness. And then there's some of us that escape through alcohol where we lean more into the depressive. I actually do both with alcohol. So, and I think a lot of people do. So I think it just depends on you, but we might be feeling a lot of that heavy energy tomorrow and feeling kind of this pull, into kind of this ungrounded kind of feeling. And so we have to be really mindful with what we absorb tomorrow during the eclipse, and kind of the energy we surround ourselves with, is we might just have no bandwidth for bullshit. We might be really sensitive. We might have past memories come up that all of a sudden are making us feel really sensitive. And we might be processing some things that we know we need to work through in a deeper way that are intense. And in the forecast, I was talking about how this particular solar eclipse is really supportive of it's not a solar eclipse, it's a lunar eclipse. This particular lunar eclipse is really supportive in releasing and letting go of things that we've been desperately fighting to hold on to, whether that's ideologies, physical things, physical spaces, patterns of behavior. Like, it's really good to just let go and let flow, as they say, which is cheesy, but it's perfect. The flowing kind of vibe is perfect for a water kind of dominant energy in the air and the ether. And, having Mercury retrograde in Taurus is still kind of ungrounding our material a little bit in that way. So it's hard for us to really feel like we can get a hold on anything or control anything. And so this is not the time to be trying to control things at all. And that's hard for Aries. Aries likes to be in control. Aries likes to feel like they're in the power seat of their lives. And unfortunately, this is not the time to be trying to do that. This is the time to be learning a lot about yourself when you can't control things, and what your reactions are to things you can't control, and how you work through that, and how you learn and grow from life just kind of happening sometimes to you, right? Which is hard. It's hard to do that. The other moon that we have is at the end of the month. We've got a new moon in Taurus at 28 degrees of Taurus. It's happening on May 19th. And so again, this is happening in the house that has, I didn't talk about the houses that these are happening in. So for the Aries horoscope for the lunar eclipse in Scorpio, this is highlighting your relationship to shared resources and assets, and also your relationship to sex and death and rebirth. It's that 8th house Scorpio energy, and that Taurus 2nd house energy is getting highlighted through this. And so your relationship to money is highlighted, your relationship to how you deal with shared resources, if it's with other people, institutions, people that you're living with, your family members, like that kind of stuff. And also, because there's an emphasis on death and rebirth, there might be actual people who've passed over the years that are kind of coming into your awareness or your ether, where you're reflecting on. All that kind of stuff is highlighted, and your relationship to your sexuality and your body and your self-worth around that stuff also comes into your awareness. So that's super highlighted for the lunar eclipse for the Aries individual. And then when we have the new moon on the 28th, that's also hitting in the area of finances for Aries. And this is a great time to set intentions around your money and your self-worth around your money. So if you're trying to generate more money or stability, doesn't even have to be financial, doesn't have to be more money, but it could be more financial security or stability that you want to build upon. This new moon is a great time for you to work on that and work on setting intentions towards that. If we look on that date around that time, we also have Mercury making a sextile to Saturn that day, which again, because Mercury is not retrograde anymore, this is also a really positive time for vision boarding, what you want to call into the physical, and thinking big, dreaming big, and then Mars enters Leo right after that. So yeah, we've got a lot of energy that's really good for creativity and really good for working on healing things from the past or in the subconscious that tie to your family lineage, and also your home life and the way that you are in the home. And so you're going to be working through a lot of those themes. And again, if you have projects at home in terms of beautifying the home and doing creative things and, creative outlets where you're working on not being in competition with other people in an unhealthy way, but maybe it's just about finding inspiration and having fun with it, learning to have fun. That's really important for you in May. There's a desire to put more lightness into things for Aries, but you have a lot of potential to end up in a lot of the heavier emotional parts of the month because there's so much of that. But it's really important that you remember to tap into your joy and the things that bring more joy and lightness into your life, and not just emphasizing the areas that have been hard over the last month. I think that June is going to be a little bit easier for Aries than May, just because we've got Venus moving into Leo and Mercury will be moving into Gemini. So I think June is going to be a little bit of a lighter month in general, but you'll hopefully start to feel more of that lightness come in by the end of May. So around May 21st, I think that we're going to start to feel some of that heaviness of the tension that we started the month out with kind of dissipating. that is your horoscope, Aries. I'm trying to keep these a little shorter. I'm not sure how long this one was, but I hope it was helpful. If you like it, make sure to hit like. If you want to get notifications on these for every month, hit subscribe. If you have any questions or want me to include the actual chart as a visual, the way I do in the forecast, just let me know in the comments. And I appreciate all of the Aries people in my life that have reached out to me telling me that these are helpful. I enjoy doing them. You can follow me at Lady of Leisure or the Sober Curator. And I will see you guys next month. Hang in there.